So, hey everyone. Uh, my name is Rodney Barnes. I am one of the co-founders of the New Developers. I'm also a junior developer at Relic Health here in Hamilton. And today I will be walking through how to add an opportunities page to the New Developers website so that we can be a source for job opportunities for students. I've got with me Gabriel. Gabriel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Rodney.
So, so Gabriel, what semester are you in?
I'm in semester 3.
Cool. So
Oh,
Gabriel's
software development. Yeah.
and Gabriel's been helping us out with the club. He's going to be taking over the reins next year probably, and is helping me out tonight with moderating the chat and relaying your questions to me. So creating an I'm just going to dive into it here. Creating an opportunities page. We will start with the repo. So you'll see on the screen now I'm at our GitHub page where the repo is, and there is a pretty thorough README here on how to install the project, how to clone it, install it, run it, and then sort of a walkthrough of the project structure. So we built the project using a library called Gatsby. And what Gatsby does is you write your website in React, and React is a JavaScript framework or JavaScript library. And I won't go into sort of the nitty gritty of what React is, but what Gatsby does is you uh, write your website in React, and then when you build the project, it spits out static HTML files. And what that means is um, the site runs really fast and it's pretty simple. So I will show you a little bit of that. Going too deep into how Gatsby works is a bit beyond the scope of what I'm going to be doing tonight, but we'll need to know a little bit of it in order to understand kind of how it all ties together and how to add a new page for it. So the first thing I'm going to do is copy this link here, and then I'm going to go into my command line and type in Git Clone and just paste the link. So I've already CD'd into the directory that I'm going to clone the repo into. If you don't know Git that well, it's just a way to keep track of changes in essentially a directory in this case. So we use that to manage, to make sure that we can have contributions from many people without anybody breaking anything and without taking the entire site down. So when I type in git clone here, it's going to make a copy of the entire directory, the entire repo on my local machine. And that is already TND. I think I have a copy of it here. Just gonna remove it, hopefully. So yeah, I am probably gonna hit some snags here. Okay, so we're gonna try that again. And so we're cloned. I can go into my source directory here and I see it in there. I can also type in ls there. I'm just gonna cd into it now. And so with my command line, I can see which branch I've got currently checked out. I'm currently at the master branch, and it's listening to origin. I won't get into the technical details of Git here, but the first thing that we'll do is I'm going to check out a new branch, and what that will mean is it will be sort of like my own little sandbox that I can use to make all my changes and test them out. And when I finish all of this work, I'm going to push my changes into a branch in GitHub in the remote repository, and then make a request to have those changes pulled into the main repo. So to do that, I'm going to git checkout-b, and I'm going to call this Barnes create opportunities page, and there we go. So in order to install the project, I'm just going to run npm install. Let's see. Oh, I need to cd into the website. So the error I got there was I wasn't actually in the right directory to run npm install. The way npm install works is it reads your package.json to see which files and which dependencies your project takes that it needs to install. So because we have things sort of inside that top level, I need to go down into the website folder. And this will take a little bit here. And what it's doing now is it's reading the package.json, and it is extracting and downloading all of the sort of JavaScript libraries that that our project needs, and it's creating what's called a node modules folder, so that when we run it, the project can pull from those dependencies to run what it needs to run. Is this making sense so far, Gabriel?
With my limited experience, as much as it can, I am following along. I'm trying to understand something. These are things I haven't seen before, so I'm trying to make the most out of it.
Cool. Well, let me know if
Uh,
I'm going too fast, and if you've got any questions, like um, please ask away.
will do. I think so far I'm good. Uh, Definitely when we get into the actual coding.
So I've been working as a junior developer for about a year now, and this is some days the majority of my job, waiting for things. Um, I feel like my assumption around development initially, like before I kind of really got into working as a developer, was you were constantly working and moving fast and creating things all the time. And I got to say, the reality is there are just some days, and it happens for even senior developers in my experience as well, where you get blocked by something, and it can take you a good half a day to just figure out little technical things like this, if something like this wasn't working. There's a lot of downtime in the job, downtime as in like where you're thinking maybe or you're waiting versus actual coding. Okay, so we've got our project installed here. Now I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code. In the command line, I can just type code period within the directory, and it should open Visual Studio Code here, hopefully. And yep, here we go. So I'm just gonna And so this is our project. We've got here sort of the main guts of Gatsby are really at the top level here. Um, a lot of this is a little magical to me. So, for instance, I know that in order for Gatsby to create the static pages from the code that I'll show you later, it uses this Gatsby node.js file. There are some things in here that I sort of mostly understand how it works, enough to kind of get our site to work. I chose Gatsby as well when we were building this because it was new, and building something is a great excuse to learn something new as well. So we'll go into the guts of this. Just a quick introduction. So we've got our components here. So these are components that are common to sort of throughout the app. And what's interesting about our site is it's essentially a blog, and a lot of blogs, like you might be familiar with WordPress, um, you need somewhere to store the data when you have content. And a lot of like WordPress often uses like a database for that. You can use external sort of databases, different sorts like Firebase and stuff like that, to keep things sort of light, and also to keep it so that we didn't have to pay for anything, and also to keep it so that we owned all of the content. I opted for, I think, what's called a flat file system, where all of our content is created as Markdown files within our repo. And that means that, we don't have to worry about, suddenly maybe if we had a subscription to a content service or CMS, and we could no longer pay for that, losing all of our content and our whole website breaking. In order to
Right.
create, sorry, go ahead.
Uh, yeah. Actually, I think it's great. Gatsby looks great for the use case of this website. And Zine13 has a question. He says, or he or she says, do you think if you were going to do the website again, you would still use Gatsby?
I would say that I would probably think harder about it, because there's a lot of overhead. It is tough to kind of get into if you've been away from it. But I feel like that would be the same with anything. Ideally it'd be nice just to have um, a super simple HTML and CSS website. I mean, or we could have gone with WordPress as well. Um, but then we would have needed to figure out hosting, and those monthly, even when you find cheap hosting, it's still a monthly cost that can add up. For us, our only cost is the our domain name, which is like $17 a year, and it's not much.
Right.
So, and it would be tough to home roll something like what Gatsby does, which is, take you. I'm sure you could take a folder of Markdown files and then spit them out into, or run them through something that would spit it out into a web page. So right now we've got events, we've got posts. These are our blog posts, and I'll sort of, probably the best way to go through it is to just, I mean, we'll learn about the structure as we build it. Before I get like deeper into it, what I like to do is break down the big task into sort of little mini tasks and little mini checkpoints. So we know that ultimately we're gonna build an opportunities page. What we will need to do is, so full disclosure, I spent this weekend because I didn't want to run into a multi-hour blocker in the middle of the live stream. So I already built the page, sort of ran through how I would put it together. So what I'm doing tonight is more of like a recreation of that without the multi-hour blocker that I did run into on the weekend. So the first thing that we'll need to do is to define an opportunity in the config.yaml file. We'll get to that. We'll need to add a link to the opportunities page in the header. Stretch this here. We'll need to create the opportunities page. create a dummy opportunities entry. Create the opportunities list. Create the list item. Create the Gatsby generated post and pull in jobs from Southampton. So this is sort of at a high level what we're going to be doing. I think what I'll do now actually is show what the site looks like. So back in the command line, I can just run npm run develop, and then it will run sort of Gatsby develop. You could run Gatsby develop if you had the Gatsby command line interface installed in your machine. So it is running all the queries, building everything, and hopefully we will be able to navigate to the website shortly. And then finally, we're going to need to push and merge. Okay, so we can now view the new developer's website in a browser at localhost port 8000. We can also go to Graphical, an in-browser IDE. I'll touch on this later. How Gatsby transforms Markdown files into an HTML file is through a query language called GraphQL. And if you're familiar with query languages, you may have heard of SQL, which is a query language. GraphQL is another query language. I don't know it super well, to be honest. This is the only time I've ever used it. And it feels a lot more like working with JSON or JavaScript object notation. And we'll see as well how the queries themselves are very much like the objects that we'll be receiving. We've got a couple errors here, or warnings, I'll say. Should probably fix these eventually. Maybe we'll fix this with this as well. And then we see here as well, we've got Netlify CMS. So in order to create those Markdown files, tonight I'll create one manually because that's possible, because why not? But in order to, we also wanted a nice sort of user interface for people who don't know Markdown and don't know how to make pull requests to be able to add to our website. And what Netlify CMS does is provides that admin dashboard to create posts. What it does behind the scenes is makes creates Markdown files, makes pull requests, and merges them sort of automatically. We won't see that tonight because it'll take too long to sort of merge and then wait for everything to kind of deploy. But I can show you a little bit about Netlify CMS, not related to our site later. Okay, so if we go to, I control click on that, then I can see this is our website. This is sort of the header navigation component here. We've got the featured workshop here and our latest blog posts. And so what we're going to do tonight is add a link to the opportunities page in the header. So we'll have events and then opportunities. And when you click on it, just like how with the events, now we don't have any upcoming events loaded yet, but this would list, this would show a list of events. Likewise, we'll be showing a list of job opportunities. And when you click on them, just like when you click on an event, you'll be led to a page if they're created internally. And we'll be styling this page. And if they're on an external job opportunity, so one that we're pulling in from Software Hamilton, will link directly to the posting on Software Hamilton. Okay, so let's get started. First up is defining an opportunity in the config.yaml. So what this is, and what this does is defines Gatsby will use this to know sort of what this page is, but most importantly, Netlify CMS will know how to construct the post in a UI. I should probably show that actually. Netlify CMS. Sort of, they have a nice little kitchen sink thing here that we can look at. That should hopefully not take too long to load. Actually, what I want. So this is pretty similar to what our backend looks like. You log in, and then you see this UI here. Each different type of post comes up in here in the collections, and then you can add a new post. And what we're defining is when they go to add we'll have here an opportunities, and when they go to add a new opportunity, what are the form fields that they will see? And we define that in the config.yaml. And a YAML file or a YAML sort of type is stands for yet another markup language, and or markup, and it's one of the I haven't worked a lot with it outside of this site. I know that it is very sensitive to tabs and spaces. So you'll notice here, there's no semicolons or anything. There's no, if you've ever worked with XML or anything, there's nothing. It's quite minimalistic, but all of the tabs are critical. If you get one of these wrong, it won't compile. So we've got here our collections. We've got a blog, and we've got events. So what we'll be doing is defining event. What we'll be doing is very similar here. We'll be defining the name, the label, the folder where we'll be saving the markdown files, create handy little tooltip allows users to create new items in the collection, and so on. I'll go through them as I create them. So I think we're indented once here. So add a name. We calling this opportunities. I think we might need a comma there. This is really not liking me right now. Hold on a second. Missing property files. Okay, we're not quite there yet. Okay, so label will be opportunities. I'm actually going to make sure I don't miss anything here. So we're going to save this in the website /source/opportunities folder. We haven't created that yet. We will do that shortly after this. Create will be true. Editor. So what this means is, do we want to show a preview of what the opportunities looks like in the editor? We head back to Netlify CMS here. This is sort of what a preview test post would look like. This requires a little bit of setup that we haven't done yet to make it look like our website. Ideally, you'd be typing here, you'd see the preview, and it would look similar to what it would look like on the finished website. We haven't set that up, so I will not turn that on. Don't need commas here. Don't think. So the slug is the will be the URL path as well as sort of like the unique file name. We're going to use a little bit of string interpolation here. So that means when I put anything in double curly braces, it will translate that into, in this case, the year, month, and day. And slug is just the name of the file. I believe that will be taken from the title. Okay, so that's sort of our metadata. We'll now be getting into the fields. The first one will be a template key. So we use this template key to determine which component to render this Markdown file through. And so in this case, just 1 minute. I'm going to define this as a hidden widget so you won't see it in the UI. And I'm going to set a default value of opportunities post. So what this means is that I'll show you an example of like the events post. This template key here has event post as its value. We use that to determine which of these templates to render this Markdown file in. So we'll have access to the title, this featured Boolean, the type, the date, and so on. All of the fields that the user will be entered, we'll have that access to that inside the component here, and we get to determine how the web page and how the component will render that data. Okay, so we've got the template key. We're going to have a title. I'm going to do this in one line here. So a widget is which sort of form, like form type you want to use. These are all of the sort of the default widgets that Netlify CMS comes with. A string is a a basic text input. Text would be like a text area. Select would be like a drop-down menu, and so on. You can get pretty fancy. There's maps and date times and stuff like that. You can also create your own custom widgets, but that's more work. That's a little costly labor-wise. So we're just going to go with string here and hint the job title or name of the opportunity. Okay, and we're going to have a publish date. The name of this will be just date when we access it later, and the widget will be date time. Sort of behind the scenes for a lot of these widgets, there's like default values that are set if you don't explicitly set them. So in this case, we'll see that the date time, I guess we won't see, but the datetime widget gets set to whatever now is in the user's local time zone.
Sorry, Rodney, I don't mean to interrupt, but your webcam is now kind of blocking the code for some parts. Would you mind moving it a little to the right or moving the
Oh
code
yeah,
to
for
the
sure.
left? Thanks a lot. And
Oh yeah, thanks.
the more you explain, the easier it's getting to understand. As somebody who has never programmed with React or half of the stuff that has been mentioned so far, yeah, it seems pretty not easy, but definitely with some with some practice, you could get the hang of it easy, very quickly.
Yeah, I would say that there's always like this really steep learning curve to anything. So this I've introduced our project to other like developers before, and it's overwhelming because there's a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot going on. But
Right.
as with any new task, like I find that there's if you focus on sort of like the smaller pieces, they're a little more manageable, and eventually if you're patient and you take time, I find that everything sort of starts to come together and you can paint this map in your head of how all of these pieces are related and how they all work.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Zine 13 just said, the beauty of it is that it's all loops and conditionals in the end.
yeah,
So I
pretty
agree
well,
with
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, now, Ronnie, you mentioned you had a multi-hour kind of block when you first did this to prepare for the event. Did you hit that block at any point before this, or have we not
No,
gotten to that point?
I will show you what when I hit it. We'll walk through it because it's one of those
There'll be a
things
red
where
flag.
it's like a super simple fix, and it's one of those ones where it was a block that I had run into before,
Oh
and
man.
it still took me a long time to figure it out.
Hey, that's the beauty of it, as Scene said. Okay, I'll mute myself.
So we're just continuing on defining all the fields here. So what is a job post? We've got a title, we've got a date, uh, the name of the organization who will be hiring, and these are not just for us. These are not just job posts. These are also possibly volunteer opportunities, um, uh, co co-founder opportunities. So um, they're we're calling them opportunities because we wanted to allow for many different types of opportunities to kind of live here on this page. I'm also going to put in a little Boolean here to flag whether we want that post to show or not. And that allows us to have posts, like always remember every post, but then also not show them if we don't want to. So like let's say somebody was hired for a post, we can go in and then edit it to take it down without needing to delete it. We're going to set the default to that to true. Uh, so now we're getting kind of into the meat of what a job or an opportunity is, which is the description. So we have a label, and the label is what the user sees. The name is what our application will use. And I'm generally tying them one-to-one so I don't forget what one is and what one means. And we're going to use a Markdown widget here. And what the Markdown widget is essentially like a WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get kitchen sink type text editor. If I go into the kitchen sink here, this is what the user will see. And they'll be able to type in Markdown or just go to rich text and have the UI controls format it for them. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna add another hint here. Please detail, please describe. And we may decide to change these in the future. Should be easy enough to do. We can just change that here. Compensation. So, I mean, not a lot of job posts these days tell you how much you're going to get paid. That often has to come like during the interview process, you kind of negotiate that. But for us, it's like, well, because these can be um, not just full-time salaried positions, but volunteer positions or other sort of weird types, um, we'll use this space to declare, before I apply to it, am I expecting to be paid, or is this going to be like are you going to pay me in equity sort of thing? And we're
Hmm.
also going to,
A cool feature to maybe add there would be, you know how in Google, when you look at a restaurant, it has like a $1 sign if it's cheap, $2 signs if it's
yeah,
moderate, and like three if it's luxe.
yeah.
Something like that would be kind of cool. But definitely, it's very difficult, and that's when you have to think about all the possible use cases, and it would have been very easy to overlook that.
Yeah, so actually some background on that as well. We did at the new developers, we had a discussion around, what fields we want, what is an opportunity. So a lot of what I'm implementing here, I'm not creating on the spot. I didn't create it this past weekend. We had a discussion around it. We've been working with I forget their name at McMaster. We've been working with the Innovation Factory in town here. And the Innovation Factory is an organization based in Hamilton that helps people found startup companies. And so they give them access to resources and training and mentorship. And we approached them, I think it was last year, or I think it was last year. And we said, hey, we have this student club, and our student club wants to connect student developers with industry professionals and opportunities to work in the industry. And we found that there was an opportunity there to connect developers with some of these co-founders, with some of these people who, have this great idea, but maybe need a little bit of technical expertise to uh, implement it and realize it and make it come to life. So this page is sort of one part of that.
Yeah, they've been great, um, during this whole process. They really helped out a lot, and they do a lot for the community. I'm actually, I'm gonna link their website on the chat here. And yes, Riley was our contact, right? Riley is
Yeah,
who helped us.
Riley Moines, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you're interested, you can find the link to Innovation Factory in the chat. They're great people.
Okay, almost done here. We tried to get all of the required information that we wanted without having you type or having the user type out like this huge or fill out this huge form. This last one, the organization website, we're going to actually make this not required because it should be, but maybe not everyone has a website. So if they have one, then great. If they don't, then you know we just won't display it. So finally, what we've got here is a title, a publish date, the name of the organization, the location, so which city is it in, do we want to show this post or not, the general description, compensation, the contact information, and the organization website. So I'm going to save that now, and I think this is a good time for my first commit. So I'm going to stop running the application. And so my process is, everyone does this differently, I think, or mostly. I like to check what files I have changed, just as like a sanity check. Sometimes I've been working on something, I've changed a file that I haven't wanted to change, or I was changing it during debugging something else, and I can catch that here. I see that our package lock.json has changed. I think that's fine. I think some people don't commit that, but we do. So I do git add period to add all files. So you can see here if I do git status again. I guess I didn't add this one. It might not be committed. We might have that in our git ignore or something. Anyway, so this one's green now, and that one should be that one will be added into the commit. So I type in git commit -m, and I'm going to say for the message, add opportunities to config.yaml. And that package log.json is just going to haunt me. All right. Okay, so that is step 1. We've got this defined. So step 2 is now add a link to the opportunities page in the header. I think that should be pretty easy here. Okay, so this is our first sort of Gatsby component. This is that sidebar that we saw before. One other sort of complication in our project is we use not only Gatsby, which uses React, but we also use a component library called Material UI. So with React, you create components, and Material UI is essentially a set of pre-made components that you can use. I'll go to the website now. React Material UI. So let's see, let's do an app bar. So they give you, like, this is a demo of an actual component, and this is the code that you would need to do to implement this exact component here. It's just really nice because it comes fully styled with all these fancy little, CSS animations, and I don't need to worry about or fiddle with uh, much CSS at all using these. It does lock you into a specific and opinionated sort of design. It's somewhat flexible. Like ours doesn't really look, our site doesn't really look like material design, but it's because we've used sort of the more basic components to put it together. So we've got here the way you do sort of have custom CSS in Material UI is you define this constant variable that's actually a method, and then you can say, okay, so the app bar is going to have a margin left of whatever this variable is, and so on. Getting into sort of how all of this works would take quite a bit of time, so I'll just kind of skim over this as much as I can. So finally, we've got sort of the main chunk of our component. In React, you essentially create methods or functions that are rendered and spit out HTML at the end of it. It's kind of magical. I'm tempted to go into how React works because it's pretty cool, but I'll save that because you guys will all learn that in your fourth semester. Okay, so all we want to do is add a link, and all of this reads like probably a completely different language. It looks a little bit like HTML, like you can see here. We've got our div tag, and then anytime you see these green sort of tags here, these are either Gatsby or Material UI components. We've got a little image tag here. So quickly sort of reading this, I can see, okay, I've got an image, and if I'm going to compare it against our site here, I'll try to just do them side by side. Guess that didn't work. Hold on. Bear with me. Okay, so we've got an image here, which is this little image up here. We've got the new developers. So that's here. So this is all text. It's not itself an image. And then finally, we've got a list, and the list has list items. And we've got here, let's see, link to events. So that's this one here. We've got a link to our mailing list, so that's here. And then finally, we've got the last list item, which is a link to our about page. So we know that we're going to add it after events, and we're going to add, so the way that this is composed is you have a top level list and a list item, which has a list item text. So we'll be adding essentially another list item. And this one's going to have, it's also going to be a button. Because I'm doing it slow, VS Code's going to blow up on me. We're going to copy the events button. So we're going to use this component. So what this is doing is it's telling this list item component, you're actually going to render as a link. And we're going to say to, and it's going to go / opportunities. And I think that will be it for that. So just like with, just like with HTML, with React components and with like Material UI components as well, you want to close them. So you have your open, I forget what that's called, your opening tag and your closing tag. So then inside that, we're going to have a list item text. It looks like this primary. So these things are attributes passed in as what are called props. Props in React are data that you can pass down into components. So if you're familiar with, well, I mean, we could take a look at this image tag here. If we think about this source property as, you know, accepting props, then we're passing in this path to the image into this component. And we will ourselves build a new component later, and we'll see, I think, how we receive props and how we can use props to sort of hydrate our component with data. So we're going to call this link's going to read opportunities, primary typography props. So I think this is sort of more styling. So we're going to say you're going to render as an H6 tag, and your color is going to be secondary. So with Material UI, you can sort of define a global sort of palette. And you can say, okay, my primary color is going to be black or green. My secondary color is going to be red, etc. And then when you want to style something, you can just say, oh, this is going to have the secondary color. And what that allows you to do is if you ever need to change that color, you only need to change it in one place. You don't need to go through and hunt through all of your components everywhere to change that color. Okay, so we have this item here. What we're going to do is run this again to check our work. Npm run develop. I'll take a little drink here. Okay, so it worked. Let's see, localhost 8000, F5 on that. And there we have our opportunities button. And it's cool. I just added essentially 2 tags, and we've got this fully styled, has this cool little highlight thing. The problem is I click on it and it goes to our 404. It'd be nice if we had like a nicer 404. I'll probably add an issue for that. But that's because we haven't built it yet. So we're going to build that page, but we can cross this off the list. And so that's all saved. I could check that in. Why not? Well, actually, I'm already running, so I'm not going to check it in yet. Okay, so we have here a blog role and an event role, and what these are the lists that display all of the latest posts and all of our events down here. And we're going to create a new file and call it the opportunities list.js. And I'm just going to make sure I've got everything right here. This is our first brand spanking new component, which means we're going to import React from React. Import statements, kind of magical to me in JavaScript. So this will allow me to use React inside this file when it renders. From React, I often have to, oh, this is really helpful actually, it's telling me where it is. So I've installed React in the project using npm install, and you can see here that it is installed at website/node modules at types/react/index. So that's where it's pulling the actual code from. I know that we'll also need Gatsby specific things, so we'll do GraphQL and static query. So some of these will be components, some of these will be sort of functions or classes, not quite sure yet. This syntax here, where you see the curly braces surrounding it, it's essentially destructuring. This Gatsby file, the index file, likely has a bunch of different things and different maybe variables or functions that it's exporting. And we only want two of them. So we're saying, hey, only give us GraphQL, only give us static query. Whereas React, with this, as I've recently learned, with this one is the React index file is likely exporting a default of some sort. And so we can just say import and call it really whatever we want. I think you can call it whatever you want. I'm not 100% sure on that. Import prop types. So, I mean, this is going to be very similar to our other ones, right? Import React, import GraphQL, import prop types, and so on. To move really fast, I usually just copy paste, but I'm trying to go through it a little slower so it's a little more digestible. So we're going to import our first Material UI component here. Again, so this is, you can import any number of components from Material UI. We're just going to choose Typography, which is sort of their way of like their text, general text component there. Okay, and that's all we need for now. We're going to declare a class. I'm going to call it opportunities list. Extends react.component. For anyone who's ever learned like an object-oriented language, this might be familiar. You can do object-oriented, you can do object-oriented programming in JavaScript as well. So let's see. I think what we'll do is declare state here. And in our state, so our state will essentially be what is the data that this component will need access to and will be using. And we're just going to have an array, and we're going to call that array opportunities. And finally, we're going to have a function. called render. And this render will be, it's sort of like the heart of it. So it this class extends React component, and so somewhere along the line, any class that extends React component that is activated will need to have a render function, and that render function will return the style, like the actual component that you want the page to render. So this will be sort of like the list. All components need to have be made up of essentially one outlining tag. If I tried to add another one here, I'd probably get some sort of error. So yeah, they must only have one parent element. So all I want to do is have a typography component. So what this is doing here is I'm saying you're going to display an H2 tag, but you're going to style it like an H4 tag. A little hacky, to be honest, but a lot of this was built before I knew better. And so until I can get around to changing it and improving things, I'm just going to go with it, what we've got now. So I'm giving it a manual sort of font weight and color. And then opportunities. So that is what we'll display on the top. Okay, so on the other side of that, so this is to tell the class and tell React when it receives props, what type should they be? Oh, mark. A lot of this is like, I literally just copied pasted this from examples that I found while I was learning Gatsby and Netlify CMS. So I don't know this super thoroughly because I didn't create this myself. And then, so this just means that, okay, data is going to have this property called all markdown remark. And it's all markdown remark is going to have edges, or a property called edges, which will be an array. And so here we're going to get into GraphQL, and this will be doing that. I know a little bit about GraphQL, and what we're doing is sort of like a really skimming the surface of it. Usually when you're setting something up, you need to sort of define the schema and do all of this infrastructure setup. Gatsby does all of that for us. And so all we need to do is put in this query here, which we'll fill out later. And that's it. Essentially, it's super easy and a super nice introduction to it if you don't know how to use it. So here is where we get into passing in the props. So what we're saying here is, just one second. Okay, so this is the export that this file will be exporting. And what we're doing is it's actually exporting this static query component, which will render our opportunities list class and pass down this data as props to our data props. So now I think that I'm wondering if this will work quite yet, or if we need to do something to have it route there. I forget. Gabriel, are you still there?
Yeah.
Cool. Just it's getting a little lonely. Um,
I'm sorry.
no, no, it's all right.
I'm preparing my dinner as well.
Oh, yeah. What are you having?
Yeah. Trying to make some chicken sandwiches.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
So it takes some
Okay,
preparation, but
so I'm just trying to figure out
uh,
if this will actually run.
um, Osaka Anju says, Gabriel, sing him a song. And Zine, sing us all a song, Gabriel. Oh my God. Oh, you can't just say sing a song. You gotta give me a song to sing. But it's gotta include Rodney in it. Make it a song about chicken sandwiches. Okay.
Oh, nice. Okay, so we've got a syntax error here in our GraphQL because it's empty. Oh, I just opened SQL Server Management Studio. I'm so sorry, everyone. Let's see if we can. My bad. I wonder if this will work. Okay, so forget exactly how to link up. Let's do some investigation. So I need to figure out a way to have this link go to the page and render the component that I want to render. And take a look at event role. Um, hmm. Trying to remember how I did this. Oh, right. Yes. Here we go. Uh, okay. Right. Yeah. Go a little bit ahead of ourselves here. This is the actual page. Okay. Now it's coming back to me. So what we created, the structure of the page will be sort of have at least three layers to it. There will be the page, which is like this part of it, and it will have our list, and our list will have list items. So what I should have done is created the page here. And Gatsby's kind of cool in that it looks for this pages folder and gives you these are all valid paths. So if you go to your base URL /404.js, this is how we would style our 404 page. This is our about page and so on. So got a little bit of a head start because now we'll actually have something in here. But let's say and this will be much simpler as well. So we'll import React from React, import layout from components/layout. I really like Visual Studio Code for its IntelliSense. It's quite nice. So this layout component is the component that we use to inject sort of the general styles into everything. And so when we're creating a new page or when we're creating a sort of its own top level sort of component, we wrap that in our layout to make everything sort of flow nicely and look consistent. Components/SEO, import opportunities list. From components/opportunities list. So here in our opportunities list, we have this export default. When we import, that is what's being imported here. So now to build this, we're going to have const opportunities page. And this will be a function. And we're going to have our layouts. At the SEO component, I think is a Gatsby thing or a Gatsby plugin. It does SEO stuff. You can take a look at it. And click on that, press F12 to go into the file, and then see, okay, uses its own little GraphQL query and returns a helmet component with a whole bunch of stuff in it. And then finally, we're going to do our opportunities list. Oops. So that should hopefully now work. Let's see. Okay. Honestly, that is a little better because it didn't lead us to the 404. It means that it is going to our component and loading them. It's just that when we go into our dev tools, we can see that something is going wrong. I believe that it's because we're not actually pulling anything in from our query. And we don't really have a query. So we need to build all of that first. Okay, so we've got our opportunities page, we've got our header linking to it, we've got our list. I might commit now, but because it's not actually working, I personally don't like making commits unless like something is working, so that I can go back to it later if I need to. On the other hand, I kind of want to show you GraphQL as well. So I think what I'll do is comment that out, run this, and then show you how we will put together our query. But to do that, I kind of need to create something for us to return. So I'm going to create the folder that will hold all of our opportunity markdown files, and I'm going to create a new markdown file in there. Yeah, sure, why not? 2020, 10, 21, and then dummy.md. So our markdown files actually, I believe, also have, I believe this technically might be YAML. And what we'll do here is template key opportunities post. And then I'm just going to copy all of this from my existing file so that I don't bore everyone further. So all of these here correspond one-to-one with the config.yaml fields that I set up. So we have a title, a date. I think I might line this up with today's date, 10/21. And we're just going to set sort of empty string to all of that. This is a dummy opportunities post. So here's where that Markdown widget would sort of output to. So we've got that here. And finally, where I got stuck for many hours was, I'll demonstrate to you now. If we attempt to run the site. Now, anytime you build the site in Develop, you have access, as I sort of pointed out before, to the graphical interface. And the graphical interface is sort of like running SQL Server Management Studio against your DB, where it shows you you can run and compose active queries to query, in our case, our file system. And you use that, if you don't know GraphQL very well, which I don't, to write the queries that will be essentially copy pasting into our component. So this is what Graphql looks like. If, like, let's say we wanted to look up all files here, and let's say I ran this, this is going to give us, this is sort of the output of, this is all of the files in our in our directory, in the directory that it's been told to look in. And that's an important distinction. In order to display like more readable info, because we don't really know what these files are, I'm going to go into, let's see, let's find their absolute path. Okay, so we can see here we've got our images folder that it's pulling from, our posts folder that it's pulling from, and our events folder that it's pulling from. And the biggest issue that I had when I got blocked was it wasn't pulling from this opportunities folder. And I did a lot of searching around to find out why. And then somewhere there was a mention of something in a Stack Overflow post about this Gatsby Config.js. And what this does is it's a collection of sort of site metadata, but then also has essentially sort of like directives on how Gatsby should run and what it should look into. So you can configure all of these plugins that we use. So for instance, you don't have to have Gatsby read from the file system. You can point Gatsby to pull in from any sort of data source. But if you want to have it read from the file system, you need to use the file system plugin. And here I need to include, I need to have the file system know about our new directory. So I'm going to do that here, resolve Gatsby, and these have to be with backticks in order for it to work, or that's just, it might not have to be, but it's sort of like the convention that they use, so I go with it. Options is an object. Name is going to be opportunities. And then the path is going to be, oh yeah, so backticks does allow you to use string interpolation here. Directory name /source/ opportunities. So I'm going to save that. I need to rebuild. So it tells you here, develop process needs to be restarted to apply the changes to Gatsby-config.js. Very helpful. Going to run develop again. And we've got an issue. Failed at the new developer's website. Probably a problem with npm. Probably a problem with something that I just did. Let's see. I think I forgot a comma. So let's try that again. I think next time we do a live stream, we should have prizes that we can give out to people who catch syntax errors.
Not a bad idea.
Oh, okay, hold on. So, oh shoot. Okay, this is. I didn't design the sort of walkthrough it very well, obviously. So what's happening here is we can read the error. Your site's Gatsby Node.js created a page with a component that doesn't exist. The path to the missing component is opportunitiespost.js, which we don't have. And so what we're running into there is Gatsby Node. All I wanted to do was show you that one. I think what I'll do is I'll do a little cheat here. I'm going to add everything. I'm going to show you a new Git command, git stash, my favorite one when I'm working on experimental things. So git add a should add everything that I've been working on. Git stash will stash it in the stash. For anyone who's taking data structures and algorithms, it is a first in, first out stack. And so now I'm essentially reset back to back to the commit that I made. And all this will allow me to do, oh, well, I did show you GraphQL, so I don't actually need to do that. Yeah, you know what, I'm sorry, my apologies. I wanted to show off a bit, I guess. So pop that out. To apply that again, you just git stash pop. You can get more fine-tuned with it. Okay, so GraphQL here, although I could have shown you this. Yeah, actually, let's see. Okay, so, oh yeah, what I wanted to do was show you how this actually translates into the results. Although, man, we're almost at an hour and a half and we're not really close. Okay, I'll go over this briefly. To create a page, it runs this query, returns all of the Markdown files, reads the template key for those Markdown files, and then saves them here. You can see data.allMarkdown or markdown edges, saves them in posts, iterates over each of those posts, and then runs this method on them, create page. Let's go to create page. Oh, it's an action. So it's a Gatsby thing that we're not going to look into. But it takes the, we have this component that we are telling it to resolve to, and we're going to take the templates and we're going to take the template key from it. And what's happening is it's grabbing our Markdown file and trying to render it, trying to resolve it into a component, but I haven't created that component yet. So that is what I need to do now. Okay, so we have our config file. It is reading from it. And what we need to do is create a opportunities post template. And I'm just going to copy paste our imports here. And you'll see there's many different ways to, there's a lot of different syntax that you can use. Unfortunately, we don't have sort of like a common way of doing things with this project. It would be nice though to have that. So here we're just export default function, opportunities post. So this will be the data that it will receive. And then we're going to do a little more destructuring. Destructuring is so magical to me. So what this means is that so another way of doing this, just a quick little thing here, is you can say const markdown or mark equals data dot markdown or mark. But what this line does is it uses two things. One is object destructuring and also property shorthand. So if data has a property called markdown or mark, you can just essentially do a couple things in one go by that. It's not as readable if you don't really know what's going on, but it is kind of nice when you have like two things like this. So now this gives me two constants, front matter and HTML, that I can use by destructuring the markdown or mark object. So this is where we take in our fields, and we're going to display them. So this will be like a top level page. So we will wrap it in our layout, typography. And I copied a lot of this when I was creating it from our other pages. And so I know I'll show you sort of where I'm getting the objects from and how I know that this has a title. What I did was ran the query and viewed it. Actually, all of this is should line up one-to-one with what we define in the YAML file as well, in our config file. And then organization will be front matter organization name, I think. Nope, just organization. The rest of these, so the first one will be an H2, the rest of these will be H6s. And just to speed things up just a touch, I'm going to do front matter dot location. So this will be the organization, this will be the location, the compensation, and contacts info. And then finally, I'm realizing now that I didn't include all of the information before. Okay, so we're going to make this body one. We're going to have so this will be the description, and the description is sort of a unique element because it is HTML, dangerously set inner HTML, and they called this dangerously set inner HTML because it is dangerous to set HTML in the way that we're doing it. I think that might possibly expose, this might mean that you could potentially inject things into our site if you got into the back end and set it in the UI, but I haven't experimented with that yet. but we trust our users because right now our users are ourselves. I don't think anyone else has access yet. Okay, so what we're going to do is we've essentially copied some of the other posts here, except for this formatting. I'll go through that when we get there. But we're going to need to get this data from somewhere. We're going to get that from running a page query. And this is going to be the GraphQL page query. And what this says is it's just going to be a query, markdown remark. It's going to receive an ID as a parameter. And we're going to get all of the information that we're looking for here. Kind of wish that I had organized this in a way that this made a little more sense. Ideally, you do it in a way where you run the query to experiment. But because I've already sort of done this before, I know kind of how it works. Okay, so I think we'll use this eventually. I'm hoping now that it should compile, but we'll see. I like this. Osaka Anju, spot a syntax error and Rodney will come to your house and make you a pizza. Great. I can actually make pretty good pizzas, so that would be worth more than a syntax error. That would be, I don't know, I feel like you'd have to take on an issue or something. Maybe the first issue. I couldn't really like make it to you in your house with the whole COVID stuff going on. So okay, so it compiled. Woo! It gets more exciting
Nice.
the more we get into it. So let's see if this works. We've got an error. I still think it's because of our list because we're not actually querying that yet, but hopefully this works. So let's see, post events. And here we go. Here it is grabbing our opportunities markdown file. And if I go back into the query that I jimmied up here, I would need the ID. I think what we want to do is fix the opportunities list here, and we're going to copy, let's say, this query here to get all of the events, and we're just going to change it so that you can see here it's filtering by template key equals event post. We're going to change that to pull in what we want. So this is what a working query looks like for the event role. It pulls in all of the data that we'll use in those event items. But what we're going to do now is change this so that opportunities post, and let's just say we want these three things. We want the title, the template key, and the date. So we have essentially what it returns is JSON. So we have an object. The object has a data property, which has an all markdown remark property, which is where I got that from, which has edges, which is an array of objects. And it's actually specifically an array of nodes. And each node is a markdown file. And this markdown file has an ID and a slug and an excerpt and so on and so forth. Don't need that excerpt. And this is, I think, the, we'll call this the opportunity list query. And we can just copy paste this because we know it works here. Therefore, it should work in our code. in our opportunities list, in our static query here, GraphQL equals this. I think it needs to do this. Yeah, backtick. And then that should hopefully work. So because a query needs to run on compile, we can't hot reload it. So we have to stop running it and then recompile everything. As we're hitting the hour-and-a-half mark, I'm probably going to do a little more copy pasting to speed things up a bit. I do want to be done by 9. So we'll see how this goes. Then we are almost done. I think we just need to build one more component actually after this. And then we'll pull in from the API, the Software Hamilton API. Okay, so yes, we have warnings, but we have this working. So we can see it's rendering now, it's without throwing errors. And if we go to opportunities, it does throw an error, but let's see. Got object. Hot exported component. Element type is invalid. Let's see. So in this case, I'm going to check between the event role and what I'm doing here. I'm just going to delete this. I'm not going to pass in any props. So I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible in order just to get it to work and then build it up from there. Expected a string with built-in components, but got an object. Let's see. I think that is okay. Data equals data. Types. Data prop types dot shape. It seems that we have hit a snag. Element type is invalid. Expected a string. So I think I might look that up. Gatsby element type is invalid. Expected a string. Let us debug.
Now we're watching real coding in action.
Yeah, this is the nitty gritty now.
Yeah.
It could be my import. Or it could be the way I'm rendering it. Oh, let's see. No, renders an object. Const data, return this. I feel like it's a syntax error somewhere. But where? Opportunities list extends React component. Okay, so if we go back into page, oh, let's see. We are not actually rendering that. That's possibly why. And then export. Oh, yeah, I think I found it. Export default opportunities page. So I think what was happening was because we weren't exporting it here, Gatsby was trying to go to it, but we're not finding an export and exploding. So I think it should work now. Okay, here we go. So refresh opportunities and loading static query. Oh, it's because I defined it incorrectly. So exit that. That change list here. So the warning was a failed prop type. It was expecting a prop query. I called it GraphQL. So it was a syntax error here. And I believe I will probably need to rebuild again. No, and it works. Perfect. Okay, so we have our opportunities page here. I believe if we went to 2020-10-21-dummy, this will go to our dummy post. Div cannot appear as a definite I think we'll fix that eventually. Ideally, and this was an issue I'd like to take out, is ideally this would be opportunity slash, but this works for now. Okay, so we have the opportunities page. It is technically rendering the list, but we don't have anything in the list right now. We're gonna go actually into cancel that. Sorry, I'm gonna move a little faster here. I'm gonna go back into here to have show equals true so we can test it out. Opportunities list. Let's see. So what we need to do now is we're receiving the data as props, but we need a component to render it into. So we're going to render into opportunities list item. And let me go to my handy cheat sheet here. Import all of the things that we'll need. Import our styles. And then I will type this out just real quick though. So we're going to export an opportunities list item. And this is going to be a function that takes in props. And our props will be the individual opportunity, like the individual data that we receive from the query in our list. Opportunity info equals props dot info dot front matter. And I think, I'm not sure if I still have that query up. But the front matter here will receive a title, a template key, and a date. So this opportunity info will have opportunity info dot title dot template key dot date, and we'll be able to use that to display that information. So we're going to return a card. And what I'm doing here with the styles is defining the styles, the local styles for button, card, the content, the title, and this is sort of a function that I sort of pass into this local variable, which I can then use to give these class names that style them. Card contents, class name equals classes.content. I don't know why I make this mistake all the time. Let me see. Sorry, just because we have about 15 minutes left, I'm going to, and we still have the API to pull in. I'm going to just copy paste a little more. Template key, and then let's see. So we're going to have a link to the post there. And then we're going to display some information about it. For instance, we're going to display the date posted, the organization, and location. And now, because I know I haven't included that in my query, I can add that here. So we have date, we want the organization, and the location. These correspond to the name in the config.yaml file that I set earlier. And finally, so this will mean that there will be sort of a header that you can click on to link to the page. And we're also going to have a button that you can click on. And that button will say, read more. So now, when we run this, what we should see is that one entry, our little dummy markdown file. Okay, so we're going to go back to our page here, close these ones out. Interesting, we don't. Feel like we will eventually. And what we can do is we can test out this query. unless we're not passing it in. Oh, you know what's happening is I've created the component, but I'm not actually calling it anywhere. I do this often. Getting ahead of myself. Okay, so opportunities list. Let's see. So we're receiving this props, calling it data, and what we want to do is just 1 second. We're going to do some fancy JavaScript stuff. Data. What is data? Let's console log data. I believe that data will be, let's just see. Okay, so we've got all markdown remark dot edges, and what we want to display are all of the array of edges. That's what we want. Okay, so const markdown remark equals data. Although we could just do this dot props dot data and actually markdown remark dot edges and I think I'm going to do something else here. I think I'm going to and I'm not going to deconstruct it. I'm just going to call this for now. I'm just going to call this opportunities. So we're going to say here, if we have any opportunities, then we're going to do a map. And what a map does in JavaScript is iterates over all of the items in the array and returns a new array. In this case, what we're going to return is a HTML element. In React, you might experience this in Vue as well. Anytime you're like dynamically creating a list of something, it needs to have a unique key attribute. Pix. And let's see. And then finally, for each of these, we're going to render an opportunities list item. And we're going to say path equals node.fields.slug. And we're going to say info equals node. So we're going to pass in the node. Each node is each markdown file. Then finally, just want to make sure I've got a little error here. Looks like I don't need this one. Looks like I don't need this one maybe. So this will take in our opportunities and it will render them. with each of these list items, hopefully. List item is not defined, so we need to import it here from components / opportunities list item. So rebuilding, and let's see if this works. And it works. And we can click on it and go back, click on this and go back. And let's not worry about this for now. Okay, so that is how you create an opportunities page. The last part, and probably the coolest, is we're going to go to Software Hamilton, and they have a jobs board, and Kevin Brown, who used to be an instructor at Mohawk and is sort of manages this whole site, told us that there is an API that we can use to get this full list and pull it into our site. And if you don't know, an API is essentially a way for one program to speak to another program. And what we'll do is, in this case, it is a link, and we'll go to that link once on its own and see what data we get. So this is the data, and we'll display it in a much better way. But first, we're going to pull it in, and we're going to pull it into our opportunities list. And to do that, I'm going to install a little library called Axios. And so there's many ways to make a call to a different URL. You could you can use the JavaScript library for it. Personally, I find that Axios is it's a little more powerful because the JavaScript library takes some time to for all of the specifications to be hammered out and to get up to date, whereas Axios is more privately maintained, and so they can introduce a lot of features and stuff to it a lot faster. And I find it a little easier to work with. So you have these opportunities here. We're going to dip a little more into React and its life cycles. So we're going to introduce that state again, and that state. So what we'll do sort of at a higher level is when this component is mounted, so when it's requested from the web page, we're going to get all of those job postings from Software Hamilton and render them in our component. And we'll do that by saving them in our local state. And we're going to, okay, I'm going to be going a little over time now. I'll try to get this done as fast as possible, but if you have to go, feel free. Okay, so this gets automatically triggered by React when the component is first mounted. We're going to replace this here with this here. And then going to get Axios. Get. And then I'm going to want to get this. So I put the URL in there, and the .get function returns a promise, which means that it runs asynchronously. And I don't want to get into async stuff here, but the short of it is this will run, and then we're going to attach or chain another function to it to trigger when the get completes its work. So this function is going to take in a results parameter, and that results will be all of the data that we're looking for. So for now, I'm just going to console.log the result, and then we'll see. Oops. what that does. Oh, crap. Okay, so we're going to run that again. I'm going to rehydrate a bit. Is everyone still there?
Yeah, sorry. It's just my cat is all over the computer, so
Oh my goodness. I've
sorry.
closed my doors so my cats wouldn't be on my stuff.
Smart. I'm in the living room and I feel bad locking him in the bedroom.
I see Zine13 is still with us. That's nice. Okay, so let's see. We have this failed because syntax error. Great. Let's see if this works now. Opportunities. Oh, I think I don't need to do an equals. Rebuilding opportunities does not find. I think it was a little premature to do this. Let's try this because we're not actually saving anything into it yet. Oh crap. Oh, you know what? And then, sorry, my bad. And I just, the problem with having all my icons down there is I go randomly click on them. Okay. So just for now, I'm going to comment this out. Just to get this working and just to get. Okay, so this is the data that we got from Software Hamilton. I believe, yes, yes it is. So it's kind of nice in the dev tools here. I will expand this out a little bit and maybe zoom in even. Because this, so a lot of APIs like this, it'd be nice to have documentation around it, but if they don't, then this is one way of sort of figuring out how we're going to get the data that we want out of it. So it's an object, it's got properties, config, data, which is an array, headers, requests, etc. We're just interested in this array. It looks like what each job post is. So they've got 5 job posts that they're returning. And what we want to display is, oh, we don't have it up anymore. The data up here. So we want to display the title, the date, the organization, and we also need the link to it. So here we've got the link. So we know data.link. And let's see, where can we find? I think the other stuff's in the meta. So if you go in the meta, we have company name, perfect. Company website. I don't think we want that on the front, and we're just going to link directly to the post. So we need the title as well. Let's see. Where is the title? Oh, here it is. Title.rendered, Senior Software Business Analyst. Okay, so now that we've got that, we're going to go back in here so we know what result is. And because I've already figured all of this out, I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit, again because of time. But what we want to do is we know we want to preserve essentially this call here. We want to say, okay, so we're going to iterate over all of our opportunities, and all of our opportunities are going to pass in a node, and that node is going to have an ID and have a fields.slug and so on, and have all of the sub properties that this component is expecting. So we need to massage and transform the data that we're getting from Software Hamilton to the data that we're returning from our GraphQL query. And in order to do that, I wrote a little function that maps a software Hamilton job to a node, a GraphQL Markdown node. I'll just paste that here because it'd be cool to like walk through creating it, but because it was kind of a nice iterative process. But so what we take in here is, so it's a function, and we take in a job, a software Hamilton job, and we're going to return a node object. That node object is going to have an ID. It's going to be equal to the software Hamilton job.id because we need a unique ID for the key down here. It's going to have, the slug will be the link to it. So we're going to set the slug to the link from the job. And then we're going to set up this front matter object, and it's going to have a title. The template key we're going to hard code to external opportunity. And then the date, so the date we get as a string. So we're going to parse that into a JavaScript date object. And I did a little bit of working around this to figure out how to make them the same. So we'll have the date, we'll have the location, we'll have the organization, and show true. And then in here, what we can do, so we have this result. We're going to pull out the jobs result.data. So remember, it was a data object, and we're going to iterate over all of the jobs that we see in there and return a new array. But what we're going to do is we're going to this.map sh job to node. I'm going to pass that job in. So this sh jobs, I can console.log that. Hopefully this might work. So now, let's see, I don't think that took quite yet. Let's see. Oh yeah, I didn't render because I'm not quite ready to comment this out yet. Okay, so it's going to rebuild there, and we're going to refresh this, check our output. So we've got the array of 5, which is what we're looking for. And now we can see we've got each node will look exactly like what each post will look like. And now, so now that we have that, we're going to do, I'm going to copy some more of this here. So the from files is going to be the data, and so long as there is data, so we do a little bit of null checking there, we're either going to pass in an empty array or the edges, which is the array of nodes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to combine these two arrays into one array. So const opportunities equals the jobs from files, and we're going to concatenate sh jobs, and then we also want to filter them. Well, I can show you both of them together first, and then finally we're going to this.setState. So set state is another React specific thing where you set the state up here, and then in our component, this.state.opportunities, we access the state by calling this.state in there instead. So hopefully that works. So now we're pulling in all of the software Hamilton and our dummy post. Our dummy post is not being formatted correctly because I need to add that to the query. So we have here, let's see, I think the blog role formats them. Yeah, so we have this format string here. We're going to add that down here, date format string down there. That means that we'll need to run it again. But what we want to do is, it'd be nice to do two things. One is we need to filter out all the ones that we don't want to show. And then it would be nice to sort these by date. I think these ones might be already sorted by date, but we'll do it explicitly because we don't really know the way we're concatenating them. We're just saying, hey, put the files first and then put the software Hamilton one second. What we want to do is combine both of them and then sort them all in order of date. And so we'll do that down here. So after we can concatenate them, we're going to filter them. And we're going to say for each opportunity dot node dot front matter dot show equals true. So only the ones that are true. So I'm going to just reorganize this a little bit to make it a little easier to read. And then finally dot sort. And the sorting on date in JavaScript I have to figure out. It's a little weird. I'm just going to copy this here and then walk you through it. So we're going to take in A and B, so opportunity A and opportunity B, and we're going to return, the sort is expecting either a 0, a -1, or a 1, and we're going to say, hey, where b.node.frontmatter.date, so we're that one minus the other date, and it's going to return either 0 when you compare two dates like this, 0, 1, or -1, and then it will sort it on that. And I believe that will be dates descending, so from most recent to most distant. And I believe that might be it for our opportunities list here. Let us see. Okay, so we have our dummy one is gone, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. It looks like this one's a little weird, but I guess that's what the title is. All right, so checking our list, created the opportunities page, created dummies entry, created the list, created the list item, created the Gatsby generated post, check, pulled in jobs from software Hamilton, push and merge, not quite yet. Almost there, because just one last thing. We need to filter in the individual list item, well, two more things, I guess. In the list item now, we're taking in two different kinds of opportunities. We're taking in internal and external opportunities. And so we need to do a little bit of conditional logic on that. And I'm just going to copy paste it here because it's getting real late and I'm old. So what I'm saying here is, okay, now you're going to check for the template key. If it is an opportunities post, so this is a ternary operator here, you're going to render a link, or you're going to render an A tag. And this is an important distinction in Gatsby. A link always links to internal resources, and otherwise you have to use the A tag. And likewise, we're going to change our button down below. So to make it more explicit, when the opportunity is an internal one, we're going to have read more. Otherwise, we're going to have go to posting. So I'm just going to format this real quick. And think just one last check on everything here. Just going to run develop. Are there any questions that anyone has? As we wrap up. Okay, so it compiled just fine, and we've got still those two. You know, I'm gonna fix these. So make styles and buttons defined but never used. Let's just head into there. It's a little bit outside the scope, but because we're running fast and loose with this stuff, I think it's in here. Make styles and button. Eliminate the warnings. And now we can go here and this is just getting worse and worse. Look at this. Two of these, something's going wrong there. Programmer analyst. And they both lead to the same posting. Interesting. There must be some sort of like oh, you know, I'm doing it twice. Look at this. That's why there's an issue there. Let's go back here. Opportunity list item. I think I'm rendering them both at the same time. Is that what I'm doing? Let us see. Opportunity info. External opportunity. That's such a weird title. Yeah, there's something wrong with my logic here. Oh, it is because I still have that link there. Okay. So that should fix that. And that's good. We can click around. Nothing else is broken. If I was to set the other one to show, then it would show. These ones do lead to the external. And I think that might be it. So just want to check through quickly, make sure I'm not messing up too much stuff. It's always good to kind of go back through everything you wrote. So add the file system, add the templates here. I wanted to add the styles there. Because the post itself is kind of ugly without it. This stuff we won't get to see. I'm gonna just wrap this up quickly here. Okay, cool. So that is that. I'm going to get status, added all those things, get add a, commit n, finish implementing opportunities page. And then finally, I'm going to push origin. So that's going to push to the remote. Create opportunities page. And then when we go back to our GitHub here, we should be able to see, hopefully, make a new pull request here. And this is another place where I usually like to check all of my changes, making sure I'm not introducing anything that's like a little too broken. So we've created our list item there. We've created the list. We have our little dummy, oh, show true. That's interesting. So it should have been showing, but it wasn't showing. That means that something is broken. 1 second as I debug this now. So in our list, we want to opportunities. Okay. It should have 6 things here. But there's only 5. Interesting. And I think I also have another console.log somewhere too. All right, well, you know what? That is about 98% of it. I will probably go over and try to fix that on my own before merging. But the rest of the process is you make a pull request. You, I will just create this one here because I'll need to fix it. Ideally, one of the maintainers, one of the maintainers does need to review it. You need at least one approving review. And then I'll show you creating this one here. Create opportunities page, fixes, number, let's see. So what this does is we have issues in here, and then you can close them by typing in fixes or closes number, whatever. Create a pull request, and the pull request is up and live. And that's that. Gabriel, how did I do?
Amazing. So now that request will need to be approved, right, by one of the reviewers.
Yeah, so if I was to try and
Cool.
merge now, I personally can because I'm an administrator of the repo. But
Hmm.
if you weren't an administrator, you would need to have one of the maintainers approve it, and then you could merge it.
That's cool.
And we do have
Yeah.
some actions sort of in place here. So what happens is as soon as a PR is merged, we have a continuous sort of deployment process set up with Netlify to automatically pull our repo, build it, and deploy it.
That's cool. Uh, Osaka Anju says you did great, man,
Thank you, Osaka Anju.
and you did. So, could we have just one last look at the opportunities page?
Yeah, for sure. Uh, Here we go. And these are legit opportunities that you can, apply to.
So,
Mobility Solutions, Senior .NET
so
Developer.
now anybody, I guess, in the area in Hamilton or anywhere really, can just go to the new developers website and check that out.
Exactly. Yeah. As soon as I merge the PR and our website deploys, then we'll be live.
That's cool. That's really cool. It looks great too.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that is our first stream. Thank you everyone for attending. I was surprised at the numbers that we got because I was like, literally just expecting our own team, but I think we might have gotten a few more. So that's reassuring. It's very encouraging. We've got a couple more events coming up, or actually three more events coming up this semester. We've got in 2 weeks another workshop teaching you sort of the basics of Git and source control. And 2 weeks after that, we're going to be bringing in a senior developer from Weaver, a company in town. Jennifer Champagne will be introducing us to Rust, uh, probably one of the more exciting programming languages that I hear all this hype about, and I'm pretty excited to learn. And then finally, after that, sometime during the last week of exams, we are going to have our social, our virtual social. And yes, Gabriel will be singing um, during that night for sure. Uh,
Absolutely.
some sort of some sort of song. And yeah, so we've got actually a pretty exciting lineup, I think, of workshops and stuff coming up. We'll be making sure to promote those ones a little better. Um, and yeah, hope to see you all out there for those. Uh, so yeah, just before I sign off, thank you, Gabriel, for helping me out with this. It was awesome having you on. It was really nice to not just be speaking into the void for like 2.5 hours with
Yeah,
you.
I'm sorry I didn't have as much to contribute,
No,
but
it was great. It was great.
I'm happy to help. Yeah, I learned a lot, definitely.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, the whole point of this was hopefully to encourage people to contribute to our repo. It's a great opportunity, I think, for student developers to get like an open source cred on their resume or LinkedIn. And if you need any help with any of it at all, like I would be happy to walk you through it and troubleshoot anything that you're working on. We do have some issues up. So one of them is like really easy. There's a few other ones that are slightly a little more challenging, like slightly more involved, but for the most part, it's not too complicated. So yeah, check out our repo, check out our page, sign up for our mailing list, and yeah, have a good night.
All right. Good night, everyone. Good night, Rodney.
See you.